So many non-Muslims and even Muslims ask, why is everything haram in Islam and so strict? Well, Islam is not strict at all. In fact, it's a very beautiful religion. The reason everything may appear strict in Islam is due to the world we live in, which is filled with corruption, sin, and an abundance of trials and tribulations. Alcohol is widely available, clubs and parties are everywhere, and revealing clothing is common. With platforms like TikTok and Instagram, it has become more easy to see haram. This world is overflowing with haram. Our eyes can't escape it. Our ears can't escape it. Everywhere we go, haram is always within reach. However, as Muslims, we must have faith and unwavering belief in Allah and His commands. Remember, if Islam prohibits something, it is always for our own benefit. Alcohol leads to fatty liver and cancer. It damages our brain cells and significantly increases the risk of various diseases, including cognitive decline. Haram relationships result in heartbreak, depression, and lead our souls into a dark place. They also disrupt family units and contribute to societal chaos. Gambling is haram, perhaps to safeguard us against our own financial ruin and poverty. Interest is prohibited, perhaps because it widens the wealth gap, making the rich richer and the poor, and working class even poorer. I could continue listing examples, but it's evident that there is a profound reason behind the prohibition of every haram thing, whether we perceive it or not. Perhaps these forbidden actions have reasons we are unaware of, known only to Allah. Nonetheless, the fact that Allah has prohibited them should be enough of a reason to abstain from them. Now let's explore a list of 7 things that are haram in the religion of Islam, and attempt to explain them in detail and the wisdom behind their prohibition. Of course, the ultimate reason is known only to Allah, but there is always wisdom behind the prohibition of certain things. Number 1. Alcohol. As previously mentioned, alcohol increases our risk of developing a fatty liver and certain types of cancer. Alcohol is an addictive substance, and the addiction itself leads to devastating consequences. This addiction undoubtedly causes an increased desire to consume more, subsequently amplifying the risk of developing health issues. In Islam, it is not only strictly prohibited to consume alcohol, but also to be in its environment or even touch it. The evidence for this prohibition is found in the following narration. It was narrated from Abdullah ibn Umar, from his father, that the Prophet, blessings and peace of Allah be upon him, said, Allah has cursed khamr intoxicants, and anyone involved with it, the drinker, the pourer, the seller, the buyer, the squeezer, the one for whom it is squeezed, the carrier, and the recipient. Narrated by Ahmad and Abu Dawud. It is classified as sahih or authentic. This clearly indicates that Islam strongly opposes alcohol and advises us to keep a distance from it. Alcohol not only increases the risk of fatty liver and cancer, but also elevates our risk of developing heart problems. Furthermore, alcohol impairs decision-making, leading to risky behaviors, such as drunk driving, unprotected sex, or engaging in violent or dangerous activities, all of which are highly detrimental and potentially life-threatening. Unprotected sex can result from alcohol consumption, which is a haram, forbidden act in most cases, as it is often performed with a non-mahram, a person with whom you are not married to. Alcohol could potentially lead to involvement in more sinful activities. In addition, unprotected sex brings a host of issues, and there are profound wisdoms behind why it is considered haram in most cases. Number 2. Casual relationships and sleeping around. In Islam, engaging in relationships and sexual activity outside of marriage is strictly forbidden. There's no room for doubt. In Surah Al-Isra, Surah 17, verse 32, it is stated, "Do not go near adultery. It is truly a shameful deed and an evil way." This verse teaches us that not only is engaging in casual relationships and sexual activity outside of marriage haram, but even approaching situations where it could be remotely possible is unequivocally not allowed. So what are the drawbacks of indulging in casual relationships? What are the disadvantages of engaging in sex outside of marriage? First and foremost, sexual intercourse is an intimate act. Sharing our vulnerabilities should be reserved for our spouses and not used casually. Engaging in such acts may lead to stronger emotional attachment to the other person. Why invest so much love in someone who is not your lawful partner? Additionally, you may experience heightened feelings of depression and heartbreak when the other person is no longer in your life. Participating in zina, unlawful sexual activity, affects your iman, faith. It's as though the believer has lost the light in their heart, and their faith lingers over their head like a cloud. True peace for the heart is found only in the remembrance and worship of Allah, as stated in the Quran. Engaging in such a sinful act leads to heightened anxiety. It's a spiritual punishment. How can you expect to find peace in your heart when you have committed such a haram act, going against Allah's command? You can't. It's impossible. Allah, the knower and creator of the heart, understands what fulfills it. He knows us better than we know ourselves. Therefore, when Allah prohibits something and tells us that only in His remembrance we will find contentment and peace, we as Muslims should have absolute conviction and faith and shouldn't have any doubts or questions about it. Number 3. Gambling. Gambling is another haram practice in Islam. The wisdom behind this prohibition is that gambling can lead to financial ruin and addictive behavior. It tempts people to rely on chance rather than hard work and puts wealth at risk. Moreover, gambling can breed deceit and disputes among people. The Quran forbids gambling in Surah Al-Baqarah 2:219, stating that the harm of gambling outweighs any potential benefit. Allah says, interpretation of the meaning, O you who believe, intoxicants, all kinds of alcoholic drinks, gambling, al-ansab, sacrifices for idols, etc., and al-azlam, arrows for seeking luck or decision, are an abomination of Shaitan's handiwork. So avoid, strictly all, that abomination, in order that you may be successful. Shaitan wants only to excite enmity and hatred between you with intoxicants, alcoholic drink, and gambling, and hinder you from the remembrance of Allah and from al-salah, the prayer. So will you not then abstain, Al-Ma'idah 5:90-91, with regard to the wisdom behind the prohibition of gambling? Any wise person will see that there are many reasons for it, including the following. Gambling makes a person rely on accidents, luck, and wishful thinking for his earnings, instead of hard work, the sweat of his brow, and paying respect to the ways prescribed by Allah. Gambling destroys families and causes the loss of wealth through haram means. It makes rich families poor and humiliates proud souls. Gambling results in enmity and hatred among the players because they are consuming one another's wealth unlawfully and getting wealth unlawfully. Gambling turns people away from the remembrance of Allah and from prayer and pushes the players to have the worst of attitudes and habits. Gambling is a sinful hobby that wastes time and effort and makes people get used to laziness and idleness. It stops the ummah from working and producing. Gambling pushes people to commit crimes because the one who is penniless wants to get hold of money in any way he can, even if he has to steal it or take it by force, or through accepting bribes and cheating. Gambling causes stress, illness, and nervous breakdowns. It breeds hatred and in most cases leads to crime, suicide, insanity, and chronic illness. Gambling pushes the gambler to bad behavior such as drinking alcohol and taking drugs. The atmosphere in which gambling takes place is dimly lit and filled with cigarette smoke. People talk in hushed voices and whispers and sneak in and out as if they are up to no good. They come in hesitantly, filled with suspicion, and gather around the green table, breathing uneasily and with their hearts pounding. They are supposed to be friends playing a game, but in reality they are enemies, each of them lying in wait for the other and trying to make gains at the expense of the other and his children. The owner of the place tries to numb the feelings of all participants by offering dreamy music, fallen women, all kinds of drinks and cigarettes. The green table is surrounded with cheating and deception. The waiters and girls may tell one player about another player's cards, helping one player to beat another by means of nods and whispers. Sometimes they achieve a kind of balance, to make sure the game carries on and people stay for longer. No doubt everyone loses in the end. They lose the money they spend on drinks and cigarettes, the money they give to the waiters, the money they spend on drinks for the girls, and all kinds of other losses. Even the one who wins all or most of the games loses all or most of his winnings, and the loser loses everything. And at the end of the night, they all sneak away, showing the signs of depression and humiliation, and the loser warns the winner to look out the next day. Number 4. Backbiting. Backbiting, or talking negatively about someone behind their back, is considered very sinful in Islam and is one of the major and most severe sins. The wisdom behind this prohibition is to maintain social harmony and protect individuals' reputations. Backbiting can lead to misunderstandings, hatred, and the erosion of trust in relationships. The Quran warns against backbiting in Surah Al-Hujurat 49:12 and advises speaking only what is good or remaining silent to prevent harm. The punishment of the backbiter in the grave and the afterlife is very scary and should serve as a warning for us not to engage in backbiting at all. Number 5. Usury, riba, or interest. Engaging in usury or interest-based transactions is strictly prohibited in Islam. Even being in an environment where usurious practices are prevalent is discouraged, such as working in banks or insurance-based firms. The wisdom behind this prohibition is to ensure economic justice and prevent the exploitation of the vulnerable. Usury can lead to economic inequality and financial exploitation, particularly affecting the less fortunate. The Quran forbids usury in multiple verses, emphasizing the importance of fair and equitable economic dealings. Number 6. Consumption of pork. In Islam, the consumption of pork and pork products is haram. The wisdom behind this prohibition is related to health and hygiene. Pork can carry various diseases and parasites, and its consumption poses health risks. By avoiding it, Muslims protect their health and well-being. The Quran prohibits the consumption of pork in multiple verses, including Surah Al-Baqarah 2:173. Number 7. Dishonesty. Being dishonest or engaging in deceptive practices is considered haram in Islam. Even being in an environment where dishonesty is encouraged or accepted is discouraged. The wisdom behind this prohibition is to maintain trust and integrity in society. Dishonesty can lead to broken trust, harm to others, and a breakdown of moral values. The Quran and Hadith emphasize the importance of honesty and truthfulness, reminding believers that honesty is a fundamental aspect of their character. By avoiding these haram practices and environments, individuals can lead a more virtuous and fulfilling life, in line with Islamic principles. In conclusion, when people question why so many things are considered haram in Islam and may perceive it as strict, it's essential to understand that Islam's guidance is not about unnecessary restrictions. Rather, it's about wisdom and protection. The world we live in is filled with temptations, sin, and moral challenges. Alcohol, gambling, sleeping around, and entertainment platforms which expose us to more haram are prevalent and easily accessible. It's a world where our eyes and ears are constantly exposed to that which goes against the teachings of Islam. But as Muslims, our faith in Allah's wisdom and His divine commands guides us. Islam's prohibitions are not random or unnecessary. They are there for our benefit and well-being. For example, alcohol is forbidden due to its harmful physical and social consequences, and casual relationships protect our emotional and spiritual health. The prohibition of gambling and interest ensures economic justice and fairness. The reason pork is haram is to safeguard our health, and honesty maintains trust in society. These prohibitions serve a purpose beyond what is immediately apparent. The ultimate reasons are known to Allah alone, but the wisdom behind these prohibitions is evident in the improvement of individuals' well-being and the greater good of society. By avoiding haram practices and environments, Muslims can lead a more virtuous and fulfilling life, in alignment with Islamic principles. Understanding that Allah's guidance is rooted in wisdom and care for His creation allows us to navigate a world filled with temptations while upholding our faith and values. This is the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed it and learnt lots from it. If you are new, please take a second right now to subscribe to the channel, and if you want to help me for my effort, please share this video even if it's just to one person. I hope to see you all in the next video, inshallah.